Oh, howdy, all. Grab yourself a beer. It's time for some Path of Exile discussion. And you might want to pour one out for Navali as well, because she is going to be removed in 3.17.0. GGD had hinted in a couple of podcasts in the last league that they were thinking of retiring the prophecy mechanic. And today they announced the concrete details of how they plan to do this. So Prophecy was introduced in 2016. It's been part of the core Path of Exile game ever since. However, over time, in GGD's opinion, it's become dated and outpaced by other newer content. So in the January expansion, we're removing Prophecy from Path of Exile. This means there is a limited time to use your silver coins and save prophecies, and there's some details in this news post. It also means it will be saying goodbye to Navali and to the Pale Council. One thing that I think is important here is that they're removing these things from the current leagues. There also appears like they're removing some of the things from standard as well. While silver coins and save prophecies make sense to disable with 3.17.0, I don't see any reason to disable the Pale Council fight. And I actually think that they should revert what they're doing with the Pale Council and just change it into a drop anywhere unique map, just like a Coward's Trial, and people can still go and experience that fight if they want to. Especially, I would suggest doing this because the Pale Council is mechanically one of the easier and more forgiving of the boss fights in Path of Exile, and I think there is a lot of space to have something that is a fight you can just practice and get a little bit of confidence at bossing with. And so, for instance, I'm thinking of this for the benefit of players that might struggle with, say, a Scoured Minotaur map at the moment. Having a boss that's noticeably easier than that would be something aimed at those players that I think they would appreciate, having a fight they can do. And I don't think that the rewards need to be particularly great. Maybe you could just have it drop normal loot and just a fair bit of it. And that could be something that would be appealing. And people might be interested in running one they want to just gain a bit of practice. That's my thoughts on the removal of the Pale Council fight and the fragments. If they did decide to make it into a unique map, you could still have the fragments work as just an alternate way of getting in there. Unique items previously exclusive to Prophecy Chains or the Pale Council fight will be added to the core drop pool. I think this could be interesting. Just a few more good drop anywhere uniques in there. There's things like Eva's Unification that will be much appreciated there. And as well as that, there's Kintsugi. Kintsugi in particular is just a really good item. And it's one of those items that I think a lot of people like to get their hands on early in a league. Well, now it's going to change. You're no longer going to have to mess around with the entire prophecy system just to get there. Instead, you'll find it via, just through luck or through trading with other players. There's a number of Fated uniques we feel are no longer exciting enough to stay in the main game. The following Fated items will basically become legacies, so they're going to be permanent league only and only available through trading there. Corona Solaris, Crystal Vault, Deed Bellow, Dread Surge, Esmite Hold, Fox's Fortune, Greed Trap, Hrimnor's Dirge, Kelton Soul, Karui Charge, Martyr's Crown, Maibo, Namahu Tiki, Panquetzalazitzi, I think that's how you pronounce it, Realmender, Sanguine Gamble, Chevron's Gambit, Silverbro, Sunspite, the Ephagon, the Griffon, the Oak, Voidheart, and Wall of Brambles. So these are the items that haven't aged well. These are the items that basically all got deleted from relevance when influenced items were added. These are things that basically don't do anything particularly special. In a few cases, the Fated version of a unique item felt worth keeping in the game, but there was little value in having the Fated and base versions of the item be separate. In these cases, the Fated unique item will be disabled, but the base unique will be updated to have stats that are identical or similar to the old Fated version. These are Winterweave, Thirst for Horrors, Cragfall, Jeffrey's Legacy, the Iron Fortress, Dancing Duo, and Time Twist. So all of those will basically become drop anywhere uniques, but they're going to you're no longer going to have to mess around with a prophecy to make them useful. They'll just be useful when they do drop. Now here's the big one. Atziri's Reflection will no longer be considered a Fated unique item. It will be removed to be a rare drop from Uber Atziri. Atziri's Mirror will no longer drop. So Atziri's Mirror no longer dropping, I don't think anyone will really care about. Atziri's Reflection is a really good item, and I think it's a good home for it to be from Uber Atziri. Uber Atziri has needed things like this. It recently got the Pledge of Hands unique staff as well, and I think this will improve fighting Uber Atziri. However, Atziri's Reflection, because of its nature as a Fated unique item, it was something that people made a lot of influenced versions of. Partly because influenced versions of uniques look amazing, but also partly because of synergies with other uniques. The Eternity Shroud maybe Replica Eternity Shroud, though that was little used, and also with Blasphemer's Grasp. All of these synergies are going away with the decision to move this to Uber Atziri. I would like to appeal to GGG to slightly change the plans here and have this drop from Uber Atziri, but have it drop with 2 random influences on it. This will have 2 benefits. Firstly, it will mean that there will be mechanically different versions of the item dropping. And we know from things like Watcher's Eye, from things like Precursor's Emblems, that when you have mechanically different versions of an item dropping, there will be several, like this tends to make it into a more effective chase unique. The second thing is that this will then enable a couple of just build around shenanigans to still work. And mostly here I am thinking the Eternity Shroud and Blasphemer's Grasp ones, but who knows what will be introduced in the future. So yeah, that's just an appeal to have Atziri's Reflection, when it does drop with 2 random influences on it, and do keep it rare. This means that to get a specific, even just a single specific influence, you're not going to get that yourself in a solo self-found environment. You're going to need to trade, but that's going to create a situation where there'll be a lot more trading happening of Uber Atziri drops, and that I think is a good thing. Faded unique items not mentioned above will have a chance to drop from any endgame map boss. This is a temporary measure. We intend to implement a more interesting way to obtain faded uniques alongside some new items in a future expansion. This sounds interesting. I'm kind of keen to see what this future way of doing this is. But I do like the idea of just having them be endgame map boss specific. Just something that can, provide a new way to get these items, and to have something that is not scaled up as much by various methods of scaling map drops. So this will be less scalable than other means, which means that the distribution of these drops across the entire Trade League economy will be a little bit more equal, which I think is a good idea. It scales less with methods of juicing, in short. Existing items that grant prophecy rewards, such as delirium orbs or metamorph samples, will be updated to grant a different reward type. This could make the delirium orbs that grant prophecies something that's quite valuable for standard, depending what they end up getting transformed into. Likewise, metamorph samples are probably not going to be worth it, but that is something. If you're a standard player, you might want to be doing a little bit of trading at the moment for some of these specific items. We're adding Lily Roth as a new possible hideout NPC. This is fantastic news. She will take over hideout divination card turn-ins from Navali, but she will also give you access to a gem shop, so you can finally do that in your hideout. No more needing to go to the Act 6 town every time you want to buy a gem. For those of you that are wondering why I say Act 6 rather than 10 or the epilogue, it's because there's less people there. It tends to be less flashy, and so it loads faster. But yeah, so Lily Roth is going to be a new possible hideout NPC. This is a good thing. We may bring back specific rewards from other prophecies, such as Monstrous Treasure, in new ways. And divination cards that grant itemized prophecies will be redesigned in collaboration with the people who commission them. If you're in that situation, then check the email address associated with your POE account for a message from GGG, which I think is the right way to handle it. So this is sort of early news, like there's maybe 60 days out from the new league, to give people as much warning as possible so you've got time to use up your silver coins, prophecies, and power council fragments before the launch of 3.17.0 in early 2022. So that's the news. If you've got comments or questions, definitely fire away below. Are there any other faded unique items that you would like to see influenced versions of remain in the game? If there are, I'd be curious to know what they are, and probably worthwhile letting GGG know what those items are as well, so that they can consider whether it's worth, for instance, maybe it would be a good thing if a Shaper influenced Dancing Duo, or Shaper influenced Cragfall, or Crusader influenced Thirst for Horrors. If these were able to drop somewhere, then GGG might be interested in knowing that there's demand for them. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it there. May your Varlobs have interesting results.